Hey everybody, it's Kirkpatrick with Life 180, and I wanted to do a video. I get a lot of questions in regards to real estate and different strategies that you can utilize and get your money working for you quickly when it comes to putting it in real estate and getting immediate cash flow and so on and so forth. And I get a lot of questions and a lot of, I guess, comments about not thinking that you can actually get a positively returning cash flow real estate property in the first year. And I wanted to do this interview with Mike Wolf, with Mike Wolf Mastery, because he has been doing this. I've known Mike for several years at this point in time. We met at an event 4 years ago we were just talking about, right? Which is cool. And we've become friends, we've become business partners, we're doing some cool stuff together. A lot of this stuff, when we talk about creating passive income, real estate is one of the best ways to actually set yourself up to be able to have passive income. And that's what I want this interview with Mike to be all about, is to talk about what does that look like, what are the benefits, and ultimately I'm going to let you talk mostly about it because this is your world, right? So Mike has been doing this for a long time. I have never met anybody that knows the ins and outs of the markets like him, both in Canada, the US, all over the world. He travels the world. He's created an amazing lifestyle of passive income. And so I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourself a little bit as well.
All right, well, first of all, yes, you can make positive cash flow right from day one, positive passive income, and it all comes down to buying in the right markets. And so many people, they just want to buy in their own backyard because that is convenient. Well, if you start making business decisions based on convenience, you're going to end up in really big trouble. So when you're dealing with your finances, do what's going to give you the best results, not what's easy, not what's fast, not what's close to home. And that's where I come in. I specialize in helping people create passive income. And I've been doing real estate investing for 30 years. And I started off investing in only my own backyard because that's all I knew. But over time, I realized that I can make my money work a whole lot harder for me, have a way better lifestyle if I invested in markets that made the most sense and where the returns are best. And that's what I'm here to do, is help other people do the exact same. And so in addition to owning a bunch of real estate for myself, I also help other people to achieve passive income and wealth creation through turnkey investment properties. So a lot of people think, oh, well, I can't invest in real estate because it's too much work. I got to go find the deals, and I got to go deal with tenants and go try to build a property management team or look after it myself. And I'm going to get calls at 2 in the morning from the tenants about a leaky toilet. And we're here to make sure that doesn't happen. Sure. So I sell turnkey properties. We've already bought the property, fixed it, put tenants in place, put a property management team in place that looks after it, and we literally sell them all over the world to investors that we help them build their portfolios, and they don't have to be real estate experts whatsoever. So
that's awesome. So we talked about this, I think, over a year ago, but one of the big things that really appealed to me when I have a background, I'm from Vermont originally, and Vermont is actually one of the worst areas to own rental property because it's very, very tenant friendly, right? And so you actually really got me thinking about, listen, just because you live in Vermont, you don't need to own a rental property in Vermont. In fact, you shouldn't, because then it is the antithesis of a lifestyle.
It really is, because now you're okay. So a lot of people invest close to home because they think, oh, then I don't have to pay a property manager, I can manage it myself. Well, that's really good if you're a very small thinker, because if you're planning on only having one property for the rest of your life, well, maybe you can manage it. You're taking away time that you could be spending with your family or traveling or doing something else. Which means at the end of every month you got to be close to home. You can't possibly take a vacation at that time. But once you get to like 3 properties, 5 properties, 10 properties, 100 properties, you can't scale your business if you're going to be a one-person show where you're going to do everything from start to finish and try to manage it and deal with tenants. And not only that, you're actually probably going to create a lot of stress in your life. It's probably, well, I'm speaking from experience. Yeah. I used to be a workaholic, and I used to be that guy. And I had no life. I had a lot of money and no life.
Now you're an anti-workaholic.
And now I'm actually a playaholic. and I have amazing teams that do the work for me. Yeah. And I use leverage. I leverage not just, people talk about leveraging money, which is also important, but also leveraging time. And ironically, people are so focused on the money. And the money is a renewable resource. There's unlimited amounts of money on this planet. And the government can just print more whenever they want.
That's the Fed.
Exactly, that's right. But you can't make more time. It doesn't matter what you do. And so if you don't treat your time with respect and cherish it and guard it, then eventually, as you give up more and more of that, who cares how much you have in your bank account? If you've got no life, if you haven't seen you don't get to watch your kids growing up, go to their sporting events, travel. What's the point? I'd rather be broke and have a life than rich and have no life and stress and bad health. So that used to be me, so I'm speaking 100% from experience.
Yeah, no, and my father-in-law bought properties in Vermont, and I know that's why we first started talking about it. He bought, and he has like 22 units, and in those 22 units, he literally spends every single weekend going down and fixing them and dealing with toilets, and you know, they were older, and so replacing wallpaper and painting them and dealing with flooring and cabinets and kitchens and you name it. It's a nightmare. I look at that and I go, why? You know, like it's not an investment, passive income investment property. It's a part-time job. It
is, and in a lot of cases, a full-time job. Only worse because you know, your full-time job, you usually don't get calls at 2 in the morning. With this, if tenants are unhappy, they're going to call you whatever time. If they're, especially, and so they should. If their furnace goes out in the middle of the winter, of course you're going to call or try to call your landlord. You have to, right? And so it becomes overbearing. And so I tell people, whatever it is, whatever you want that end goal, whatever your goal is, if your goal is to create financial freedom for yourself and have an amazing life, start right from the beginning with that. And you know, one of the lessons I learned is as most entrepreneurs, I was a one-man show because I thought nobody could possibly do what I do as well as I do. And why am I going to hire a property manager? You know, I used to become really friendly with the tenants. I thought, you know, if I'm really friendly with them, of course they're going to pay me. Well, that actually has the opposite effect. If you become friendly with them, at the end of the month they have a decision to make. Quite often they have enough money to either pay you, to pay their car payment, or pay their credit cards. If they don't pay their credit cards are going to get cut off, and their credit rating is going to go down the tubes. If they don't make their car payment, eventually the car will get repossessed, and they're going to get bad credit. If they don't pay you, nothing happens, other than you're going to get mad. And I know you're a lot like me, and we're very sympathetic because you know the tenants.
Totally.
We want to help them. We know they're not in most cases as well off as we are. Although every single tenant I ever had way nicer TVs and stereos and sometimes cars than I did. That's another story.
That's another conversation.
That's another conversation. But when I first hired a property manager, because I had to, because I started to invest in a second city, I couldn't be in 2 places at the same time. When I first hired a property manager, I realized that he was treating it like a business. I treated it like a friendship. He was treating it like a business. And so he set down very specific rules for them. And the tenants would pay on time because he would tell them, listen, if you don't pay by this day, we're going to give you a notice, we're going to go to court, and you're going to be gone. And he just did not treat them like friends. He was nice to them and treated them, but in a business, professional sort of way. And so one thing I learned is that even after I paid my property manager, he would still collect a lot more rent than I ever did at the end of the month. And so not only did I have somebody who was doing the work for me, I was making more money without doing the work. And it took me a while to learn that because I thought nobody could possibly do that. But property managers only get paid if they collect rent. They get a piece of that. So they're going to treat it like a business because they want to get paid for their work. That's right. And so now I've got quite a lot more properties than I ever had. I have a lot less stress than I ever had. And I don't deal with any of it because I've empowered the people on my teams who are much smarter than me at what they do to do what they're best at. And they don't call me, there's a leaky toilet, they don't call me. They're empowered to just fix things and deal with it, and that's what we do for our clients too.
That's awesome. So talk to me about what you look for. Like when you're looking for cash flow property as an investment, as a long-term asset that's going to create income immediately. I mean, there are a lot of benefits, obviously, and we'll talk about that as we go, but talk to me about what you look for to find the right property to invest in.
Right. Well, before you even find the right property, you need to find the right market, and we'll talk about that after that. But if you're in the wrong market, the right property in the wrong market still gives you bad results. But to find the right property, what I recommend and what we do in my favorite market, which is Atlanta right now, we try to find properties that are relatively new. I don't want to deal with asbestos issues. I don't want to deal with stuff that doesn't comply with
lead paint issues, stuff of that nature.
Exactly, none of that
Mold
stuff.
coating stuff.
Right. So most of the properties we deal with are mid to late 90s or newer.
Okay.
That way you're not going to be redoing entire electrical systems and plumbing roofs and all that
stuff. Of that
yeah, I mean roofs can be replaced, but really you want to get newer properties. You want to be in the right neighborhoods, not only the right market, not only the right city, but the right neighborhoods. And what I mean by that is in the industry we talk about A, B, C, and D neighborhoods. Okay. And A would be your Beverly Hills, and intuitively that sounds like, hey, that's the best place to own, right? But that's actually not a good place to own
small demographic
revenue properties because, well, you're going to pay a premium for the property. In most markets, you only get so much rent. After that, it's very hard to find tenants. Not only that, if you go to Beverly Hills, most of the people there are homeowners. There's not a lot of people that will rent. And if they do rent, they're usually maybe somebody that got transferred to the city and they want to rent until they find a place to buy, and they're not going to stay there for the long term. So you're paying a premium, you're going to have way more vacancy. The people you attract are usually going to take good care of the home, but they're going to come and go and come and go. Yep. And so we don't like those areas. I want to live there, I don't want to have a rental property there. Then you have the opposite extreme. You have the D neighborhoods, which we call the war zone. And in those areas, you're getting, the homes are really cheap, but think about the worst neighborhood you can think of.
Like slumlords.
Right. Who's going to live in your property? People that are one step away from homelessness quite often. And typically people that, they kind of look at you in a very jealous sort of way and resentful sort of way. And it's like, oh, the rich landlord, he doesn't even need my rent. Why can't he just give me a break?
Sure.
And these are people that typically, I hate to be stereotypical or judge, but they're people that they feel like they're entitled quite often.
Sure. Yeah.
Not only that, you're not going to attract a good team. What property manager says, I'm going to go collect $500 rent, risk my life to go through the war zone to make $50? Because typically property managers get 10%. With less work, they can go to a nice neighborhood, collect $1,500 rent, and make $150. So one, you're probably going to get a bad property in a bad neighborhood with a bad team and a bad tenant. That's a nightmare waiting to happen.
Sure.
So the areas that I've left out are B and C, and those are both your best places to invest. B and C look quite similar. Quite often the homes are a model match because it's the same builders in those neighborhoods. But the B neighborhood, the biggest difference is the demographic. The B neighborhoods tend to have more homeowners and less rentals, whereas the C neighborhoods tend to be more rentals and less homeowners. And in the past, especially when I was first starting out, I bought a lot of homes in C neighborhoods because on paper they look better, like they're a better deal because they can be cheaper and the rent might just be a little bit less. But you're actually selling yourself short. Now I'm not saying don't buy in C neighborhoods; they're still okay if you get the right deal. Sure. But a B neighborhood is much better, and here's why. When you go to sell it, if you're selling in a neighborhood where it's mostly homeowners, you're going to sell to a homeowner. And homeowners will pay a premium for the right property that has the right countertops, the right appliance, and they'll pay a premium for that because they want certain aesthetics. In a C neighborhood, you're probably going to sell to another investor, and what are investors looking for? A good deal.
Profitability.
Right. So even though on paper the C neighborhoods might look to be a better deal, in the long run, when I look back over the thousands of transactions that I've done over the years, when I look back on them, the B neighborhoods have always outperformed the C neighborhoods.
That's awesome. So
that's where I tend to invest. So you got to be the right neighborhood, and once again,
in the right area,
in the right area,
in the right neighborhood. Exactly. I mean, it's like a funnel, right? You got to pick the right region, then the right neighborhood, and then
and if you're holding on to properties, though, like I said, try to stick to newer. Try to stick to a neighborhood where maybe you don't want to have the nicest home on the street. And for your ego, it might be a good thing. Look how beautiful my home is. For an investment, having all the other homes bring you up makes a big difference. So, so those are some of my tips for picking the right home and the right neighborhood.
Fantastic. How do you pick the right city to, to buy a property and to figure out if it's going to be the most profitable investment for you?
Right, that's a great question. Very important, because now that you don't have to invest in your own backyard, as long as you have a team, now the sky's the limit as to where you can invest. And so what I look for, and you alluded to it earlier, is I want to go, number one, I have my three main criteria. The first one, and most people don't even think about this, but where is it landlord friendly and where is it tenant friendly? So if you go to a place like California, for example, you could have a tenant live in your home for over a year, not paying any rent, trashing your home. Wow. And if a tenant knows how to work the system, And by the way, whenever you're somewhere where it's very tenant friendly, they all know how to work the system.
And if they don't, their friend does.
Their friend does. Somebody will tell them.
Yeah.
But they can stay in your home for a long, long time not paying any rent. And you know, vacancy is one thing. Having a home that's vacant obviously is costly, but having somebody in your home not paying, that's way more costly because you don't even have the potential to put another tenant in place. And so, number one thing I look at is how landlord friendly is it. And so I love, my favorite market right now is Atlanta. That's where I do my turnkey properties. And the reason we chose it is partially because it's one of the most landlord friendly places in the United States. And so that's the number one thing I look at, because I don't want to invest somewhere, no matter how good everything else looks. I can find the perfect home.
Sure.
If I'm one tenant away from being financially bankrupt because somebody won't leave my home,
right.
I'm not investing there. It's too risky. So that's the number one thing. Number two thing I'm looking at is, where is the appreciation going to be? Yes, how do we get rich in real estate? It's by the properties going up in value. If they never go up, then that means if you buy your first property and it never goes up, that means you have to go to your job to save money to buy the second one.
Yeah.
The best way to get a nice portfolio of properties is to have the property that you buy now in a few years be worth a lot more, so you can turn it into two.
Sure.
And so that's the number two thing I look at, is what's going to lead to appreciation. And the two or three main things that cause appreciation are obviously demand on the market, or a lack of supply. And you know, in the United States right now, we have a lot of baby boomers getting up there in age. There's a lot of people leaving the north heading south. There's not a whole lot of people waking up in a warm, sunny place right now saying, you know, we should really move to Detroit.
Yeah.
So looking for you know, places where people are migrating to. A lot of people are also going to Atlanta right now because there's a ton of job creation. And just like I mentioned that Georgia is very landlord friendly, they're also very business friendly. So they encourage corporations to set up their offices there.
Yep. And
they give them nice tax incentives and tax breaks. And the reason they do it is they know these companies are going to hire lots of people, and they can tax all these people and make nice tax revenue from that. So Atlanta is home to a ton of Fortune 500 companies, head office to a lot of them, like Delta Airlines, Home Depot. Hopefully soon Amazon is actually talking about putting headquarters too. They haven't announced officially, but a lot of analysts think it's going to be right in Atlanta, and that obviously will create, you know, rent going up. A lot of people moving there. They're talking about, I think, 50,000 jobs.
Wow.
So that's a lot of people moving to the city. But it's, like I said, it's head office to so many different Fortune 500 companies, and it brings a lot of people there. And as long as people keep moving there, they're only building so many homes. And so,
well, there's only so much land.
Right, exactly, that's right. And so that's the number two thing, is where's the appreciation going to be? And then the number three thing that we look at is, while you're holding this property, waiting for that appreciation to kick in, we want cash flow. We want money on our pocket. And that's the beauty of real estate, is that you can start getting money at the end of month one, and starts to put money in your pocket that you can use for vacations, for you know,
save up for another property.
Save up for another property, which is the best thing. Add fuel to the fire, absolutely. So we talk about the properties going up to allow you to buy more, but if you start adding more money in, which can come from the properties you already own, we can now compound more quickly, get more properties, and when you get to a certain point where your cash flow exceeds your bills, then you really start to have an amazing lifestyle.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
So number three thing is cash flow, and I really love Atlanta for that, because one, the cost of living is very, very low in Atlanta. So if you know, people can afford to pay their rent, which is really good. But the homes they're relatively cheap, but compared to rent is very high, relatively speaking, compared to what you're going to pay to purchase a home.
Property value.
Right. So those are your top three things: is landlord friendliness, a good chance of high appreciation, and then number three is the cash flow. And when you have those three, that's your market.
So that's what allows the immediate cash flow, immediate profitability for the property, right?
Exactly.
Like if you buy a rental property in Vermont, I'm going to assume, although I don't know it for a fact, but I'm going to assume California.
Right.
That when you buy those properties, you're kind of expecting that they're break even or a little bit of a loss, with hope of appreciation down the road. But that's risky.
It's very risky, and you know, like I said, you're one bad tenant away from totally being toast. Because imagine you went 1 year with no income coming in from your property, yet you still have property taxes, insurance, maybe a mortgage payment, and the homes are very, very expensive. You're tying up a lot of money and taking a lot of risk in both Vermont and California. The homes that I deal with in Atlanta, we're still selling some homes that are under $100,000 for a single family home on a big piece of land, and that's unbelievable.
That's awesome.
In this day and age to still have that.
Yeah, I know, right?
In a good market with a good economy.
So let's talk about that a little bit. How do you find? I mean, you're talking a lot about, and it's scary, thinking about getting a bad tenant in there, right? And it's even scarier thinking about having a bad tenant living in Arizona, where we are in Scottsdale right now, buying a property in Atlanta, thinking about having a bad tenant in Atlanta while I'm here, or if I were in Vermont or in California and I own a property, like it's scary to think about, like I buy this property and then somebody moves in and they don't pay. So how do you find the right tenant? How do you make sure that you're not in this position? And there's obviously no guarantees, but how do you put yourself in the best opportunity for success when it comes to tenant selection?
Well, after almost 30 years of being in this business, I have seen just about everything. And I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, and one of the good things for me is that I don't like to make the same mistake twice, because every time I make a mistake, it's very costly. And one of the things we've got pretty good at is not just tenant selection, but having certain different processes in place that most people don't do. So we do the regular stuff that everybody does. Like we ask, obviously, for we want to see where they're working. We talk to their employer. We talk to their previous landlord, which could, for all we know, be their mother. We don't know. When you get on a call with this person, you have no idea if they tell the truth. And we do, criminal background checks, all that stuff, like everybody does.
Do you do credit checks?
We do. Now, we don't expect everybody's credit to be perfect, or they want to be renters, they'd be owners. But we don't want people that have, a long track record of being delinquent on everything and collections. So we look for people that, our best tenants right now are people that had really good credit leading up to the recession. And quite often they were previous homeowners, and then the recession kicked in and they lost their job. And then there was a blip now on their credit. Those are the type of people we will let in. And we know that people will get, people can get sick, they can get divorced. But if they're always bad, chronically bad with money, they're not moving into one of our properties. If they've been traditionally really good, and then we can see at one point all of a sudden it dropped, and there was something explainable that happened to them, and now they're getting back on track again, we'll let them move in. But we also have a few things that I learned along the way that we do that I don't know a lot of people are doing. One of them is we'll put in the rental contract that, well, let me tell you a story first of all. I had one home up in Canada that I had what I thought was a perfect tenant, because they gave me 12 post-dated checks. This is back in the day before I had all these other ways to collect rent. So I had 12 post-dated checks. That's old school. That's old school. That's how long I've been doing this. But every single check cleared, and I never heard from them. They never called with any complaints. And for like 10 months, I never heard a word from them. I go, man, this is like too good to be true. I wish all my tenants were like this. And then one day, probably like the 10th or 11th month, their check bounced. And I go, that is really weird. These people never bounce checks. So I tried calling, and their phone was disconnected. And went to the door, nobody answered. So I left a note on the door saying, hey, please call me. I know your check bounced. I'm sure it was just an oversight on your part, and let's just get it back on track. I never heard from them. So the next day I went to the house and put a sign on the door giving 24 hours notice, which was illegal in that county. That's what I had to do. So I said, in 24 hours, if I don't hear from you, I'm going to come into the house and make sure everything's okay, but please just give me a call. So I never heard. I get there the next day after like 24 hours, walk in, and there's a remnants of a grow up. And for those of you who haven't seen Breaking Bad, the people were growing drugs in the basement of this home. And one of the things that happens when you do this is there's a lot of moisture in the house, because they had all these heat lamps, and there's black mold everywhere. And to make a long story short, I had a $70,000 repair bill to get this home safe to put somebody back in there again. And $70,000 wipes out a lot of months' rent. So I got 10 months' rent, and I got stuck with a $70,000 repair bill. Not a good trade. So after that, I was thinking, well, how do we make sure this never happens again? And so one of the things that we do, and if you're watching this, you have rental properties, do this. We put in our rental contract that we're coming in every quarter. We don't tell them to check up on them, because they're going to think we're jerks. But we tell them we're going to go in there and change the batteries in the smoke detector and the furnace filter. And we're coming in every quarter to do this. And the best way to get rid of a bad tenant is to have them not move in the first place. So if they know we're going to come in every single quarter, they're just not going to move in. They're going to move into your neighbor's house. So since that time, that was many years ago, we have not had any problem even remotely close to that.
Interesting.
Another really cool thing that we do, and also, like I said, if you already own rental properties, do this. After they pass all the checks, if the employer sounds good and the previous landlord sounds good, and the credit, if everything checks out, before we tell them, yeah, you're perfect, but move on in, we'll typically send our property manager to their door. We don't, unannounced by the way, we don't tell them. And we'll ring on their doorbell and say, oh, we just have one more piece of paperwork, we happen to be in the neighborhood. Really what we're looking for is to see how they're currently living. Whatever they're doing to that house is what they're going to do to your house. And so if there's weeds up to your knees, that's what your home's going to look like. If their home, the carpets are filthy and their kids are walking around and crawling around on dirty carpets, your home's going to eventually look like that. And so we weed out a lot of bad tenants that way too. The other thing that we can do is if they put that they've got no pets and there's like 20 dogs running around the backyard, we know exactly what your home is going to look. We can predict, and so we can get rid of bad tenants before we give them the go-ahead. So these are just a few of the tricks that I've learned over many years of doing this, and that's one of the really big benefits to having somebody who's got a lot of experience in screwing up. You can benefit from my costly mistakes and not have to make them yourself.
Sure, and if I were to go buy a property locally where I live and I tried to do that on my own, I can know all the things, but I'm going to make mistakes, right?
Well, we all do, and there's a learning curve. And to survive in this industry a long time, you have to figure out how to course correct every time you make a mistake and be able to survive. And if I was making $70,000 mistakes on every house, I would have been wiped out long ago, and I don't know what I'd be doing for a living, but I'm pretty sure it would not be real estate investing. So I've had to learn, but like I said, I don't make the same mistake twice, and I don't let my clients make that mistake even once. So,
and that speaks to the value, I think, very highly about having a property manager, right? Because they're going to help you. Yeah, sure, you may pay whatever percent per month or whatever out of the rent to have that, but it's not just the fact that they're going to manage it and collect rent and deal with issues and all that stuff, but it's the selection and their expertise of selection and dealing with that process.
When you deal with that, that's what you do for a living, and you do it all day long. And you've got to deal with a bad tenant that you put in there. You're gonna get better at not putting them in there. And on top of it, when you're treating it like a business, the tenants know what they can get away with and not get away with. If you set boundaries, and I find it very hard myself because and I know you're the same. We're both. We want to see everybody get ahead, and we kind of feel bad sometimes for the tenants. We know that they're maybe have a bit more of a struggle than we have, and we have a tendency to be a little bit too nice to them and give them a break. You give them one break, the breaks keep getting bigger and bigger, and what they're going to expect from you is going to get bigger and bigger over time. And anyway, I'm so glad that I have other people deal with it. They do a way better job, and even after I pay them, I'm making way more money than I ever did trying to do it on my own, and it allows you to scale to a point that you can never do on your own.
That's awesome. So I know a lot of people that have gone the property manager route, and some positive experience and some negative experience in not having the right property manager. So I guess my question to you is, you just explained how to find the right tenant. How do you make sure you have the right property manager? Right,
that's an awesome question, because it will make or break you. Having a good tenant is one thing, but if you have the wrong property manager, that can break you too. And so I'm going to tell you a story about a client of mine who, a number of years ago, before I was doing Atlanta, I moved from market to market because real estate's very cyclical. Things that make sense at a certain time in history, it doesn't stay that way forever. Markets shift, they go up, they go down, and sometimes you move markets. So prior to Atlanta, I was very heavily involved in the Phoenix real estate market and made a lot of money there. But a lady called me up one day and she says, Mike, I always see you're talking about how great the Phoenix market is. Like, are you having trouble finding tenants? And I go, no, I've got the opposite problem. This was kind of getting towards the end of that cycle. It boomed. We kicked butt in that market, but it got to a point where we just could not find more properties. There's so much competition. And so she goes, well, I said, no, I've got no problem finding tenants. I have a waiting list of tenants, and they're waiting for us to get more properties for them. And so she goes, well, I bought this property like 4 months ago, and I hired this property manager, and he said he cannot find a tenant so far. And I'm wondering, am I charging too much on rent? And she told me what the rent was. I go, no, it should have been filled months ago. But anyway, So I said, you know what, I don't normally do this for people that aren't my clients, and she wasn't my client yet at that time, but I'm going to actually, because I have a waiting list, I'm going to create a win-win for you and a tenant, because I have these people waiting, so I'm going to give you one of my tenants. So I sent my property manager over to her house to take a look at it. He gets there, and sure enough, there was somebody actually living in the property, paying the property manager cash, and the property manager was lying because he knew that she didn't live in Phoenix and she wouldn't come visit. So he didn't think he was going to get caught. So he was pocketing the cash. So one of the challenges you have when you're investing far away from home is that there's room for contractors, property managers, everybody. If they know you're not there, they can lie to you, and then they're probably not going to get caught. And that's one of the reasons why I create what I do. So if you were to contrast that with, you know, my property manager, if one of my clients called me up and goes, Mike, I hear the property's been sitting vacant for 4 months, or I found your property manager's pocketing cash. We've sold about 900 homes in Atlanta in the last 7 years. So my property manager isn't going to lose your one paycheck. My property manager is going to lose 900 paychecks. And obviously, we're his only client. So if he loses 900 paychecks, he's going from making a lot of money to starting all over again from scratch. So there's a lot of motivation for him to not only take good care of you as a client, even if you have only one property. Every property is the same. If you have one property, if you have 10 properties, you have 50 properties, you're going to treat it exactly the same. Yeah, and so it gives you, and like I said, our properties are already fixed up, so you don't have to deal with contractors from afar. Like all this stuff basically all started because I was doing real estate just for myself for many years. And when I was younger, I started when I was like 23, 24. All my friends thought I was nuts, and they all didn't think I was going to succeed. Back then I was extremely shy. Being in this industry kind of got me out of my shell a little bit because I had to, but I'm actually a pretty shy guy. And nobody thought I was going to succeed, including myself. Sure. But then when I started to have some success with it, all of a sudden all my friends who thought I was going to fail, they all wanted to become real estate investors. And they quite often would say, hey Mike, can I take you to Starbucks? I want to pick your brain about real estate. They thought like in 1 hour I was going to teach them everything that I knew over decades of doing this. And I realized that, you know, even if I could transplant my brain, give them all my information, if you don't have the contacts, if you don't have the same resources, you're not going to get the same results, even if you have the knowledge. And so I started to create these turnkey properties because one, it allowed me to buy in larger volumes, which meant the properties I was buying for myself were getting a little bit cheaper. But also the carpet was cheaper because I was buying more of it, the appliances. And that's how it started. It started by me doing this for myself and then helping my friends. But then my friends started to call me, and I started helping them. And then I started to, you know, people said, well, why don't you put some of your stuff out there on like YouTube and share some of your knowledge? And so I started to put that out there. And now we literally have people from all over the world. I don't even know how many countries we've sold homes to. And so it gives the regular person who maybe he's just starting out with one or two properties to be able to do this stress-free and safely. Because if you try to do this on your own, you get the wrong team, wrong tenant, your life is going to be miserable. And your other option means that you got to invest close to home, which means that you might also be doomed from the start, especially if you live in places like New York, Vermont, California. There's so many places that don't make any sense whatsoever to invest in. And if you're limited to that, you're not going to get a good result.
No, that's true. Wow, that's awesome. So let's switch gears a little bit.
Sure.
Because I think that's all extremely valuable, and I think anybody that is watching this, hopefully you take this and apply it, because that's awesome. What about, you know, I talk a lot about different vehicles, financial strategies, different types of assets that you can put your money in. I love real estate. I talk about it all the time. I never go in depth about it because, quite frankly, even though I love it, it's not my area of expertise, and hence, you know, our relationship here.
Absolutely.
So, you know, and I believe in surrounding yourself with the people who are experts in their field, and I really am never going to know as much about real estate as you do. And so talk to me a little bit about, or as much as you think necessary, about why real estate is an amazing opportunity, why it's a great investment.
How many hours do we have?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe give me, if you could, like top 3, 4, 5 things that you think make real estate stand apart from other opportunities. Right.
So as you know, I own quite a few properties, and I'm what we call a cash flow investor, meaning I want all my properties at the end of every month to spit out a paycheck. And I also want them to be in a good market where there's a really good chance that they're going to go up in value over time. So if I took that money, and I know you invest in a lot of other stuff, I'm not criticizing any of it, but if you want cash flow, there's no better way, in my opinion, to get it. So if I sold off all my homes and took that cash and I invested in cryptocurrencies, for example, well, or stocks for that matter, if they go up, I win. If they go down, I lose.
Sure.
In the meantime, while I'm holding it, or if I own gold or precious metals, or almost any other investment, if I had the same amount of money invested in those things, I still have to have a job. Because at the end of the month, I don't get any paychecks. I don't have any money coming in.
Sure.
So I might be very rich on paper, and I know people, for example, in very expensive markets where if you bought in San Francisco or LA or Vancouver a bunch of years ago, that property went up like crazy and your property's worth a lot more money. I know a lot of people in those cities that on paper are multi-millionaires, and at the end of the month they don't know how they're going to pay their cell phone bill. So they still have to go to their job because until they sell that thing that they own, they don't have any cash flow. So that's the number one thing, is that my lifestyle, most of your people might not know me, but I travel almost every day of the year.
And that's no joke.
Also,
every day.
And I do a lot of, absolutely, and I do a lot of, I do a lot of volunteer work.
Yeah.
And I like to give back, and I can give back more because I have this money that comes in at the end of every month, which also allows me to buy more properties. So the money that comes in from all my properties allows me to buy more properties. So that's number one thing.
And let me just tap on that a little bit, because that, just to drive that point home, because that was one of the things that made me really realize when the recession happened, you know, it's not a matter of your net worth. We talk a lot about passive income, and that's when Mike told me about this when we first met 4 years ago. That's what really opened my eyes, is the fact that it's not your net worth. It's not the fact that I have 10 homes worth $100,000 for $1 million in net worth. It's the fact that I have 10 homes that are kicking off $1,000 a month in income, and that's $10,000 a month in revenue. If those houses go down from $1 million to worth $500,000, chances are your cash flow is going to remain around the same.
Well, let me tell you what happened to me during the recession. So back then, I was very heavily invested in Las Vegas, and that market dropped tremendously. It dropped like 80%, 80%. So if you had a $200,000 property, it was now worth $50,000. It was $200,000 at the peak, it was $50,000 at the lowest. And so my net worth went down tremendously, but the city of Las Vegas became a city of renters. All these people that were homeowners lost their homes, and they had to go into the rental pool. So what that meant for me as being a cash flow investor meant that now I had a larger amount of people to choose from to put into my properties. My rent actually stayed the same or went up in all my properties. I didn't lower my rent at all.
Wow.
And I didn't have to because there was such a demand. And I buy only single family homes. I don't buy apartments. A lot of people that were losing their homes, they can't just, if they wanted to rent an apartment, they have to put all their stuff in storage. When you add a rent plus storage rent, they can live in a home.
And a lot of times if you have kids and a family, like I couldn't move into an apartment if I wanted to right now. I mean,
so I had a better choice of tenants. I got, my cash flow went up, even though my net worth was like obliterated. My cash flow went up, and not only that, in Las Vegas, I was getting stuff. I actually moved there temporarily. Was you know, to me it was like a gold rush. Everybody else was afraid to invest, and I felt like a kid in a candy store because everything was on sale. And so I actually moved temporarily to Las Vegas during that time to take advantage of this. And I was getting stuff in the mail for like 50% off Cirque du Soleil shows, fancy restaurants that normally would never, or you can put a coupon, or they were just struggling to have people show up. So they had food specials. If you wanted to buy a car, everything was on sale. And so not only did I have more money coming at the end of the month, my money was going further, and with the properties being on sale to like record lows, I was able to buy more properties and really build up my portfolio even bigger. And so the recession was actually one of the best things that's ever happened in my real estate career. So
and with that extra cash flow, and when everybody else kind of had to take a step back from cash flow, maybe they lost their job, maybe they lost their home, maybe they lost whatever, you were able to take that cash flow and ultimately double down and get more properties, reinvest at a discounted rate, and so now that's where the appreciation of the home, and that's where the wealth creation is.
So here's a lesson for the people watching, is that the markets overcorrect. They go too far in both directions. And so when things are hot, everybody's fighting over properties. They get to a point where it's absolutely ridiculous, but people just keep fighting over properties because they think they're going to go up forever. And when it comes down, people think it's going to keep going down forever. The news is all bad, and people are depressed and sad.
Sure.
And I was like happy, like, wow, this is great. Even though like I said, my net worth went down tremendously. If that had been in stocks or crypto or gold, I would have been freaking out. And I wouldn't have had any money to buy more on sale. I would have been all in and stuck. And instead, everything went on sale for me, and I could buy more quickly, and it helped my career a lot.
I love it. All right, well, that's awesome. So I didn't mean to divert you from everything, but I felt like that one thing is such a huge point. It was an important.
But I'm going to tell you another important one.
Yeah.
And this is why the vast majority of the millionaires and billionaires on this planet invest in real estate. A lot of them didn't make their money in real estate. They made it in something else. But their accountants tell them to buy real estate. And the reason they tell them that is you get a lot of tax incentives when you own real estate that you don't get buying anything else. And so it's basically called depreciation, and you get to, even though your property is going up in value, the government really wants to encourage people to create, rental properties. The government's tried to do it themselves to get into the game and buy properties, turn them into rentals, and of course they lost a lot of taxpayer money trying to do it. So they encourage people like you and I and to go and go out there and buy properties, turn them into rentals. Because they give us all these tax benefits, and one of the biggest ones is depreciation, which means that even though my property is going up in value and it's giving me money every month, on paper, over 27 and a half years, I can deduct a certain amount of the value of that property because they know that, hey, the appliances are going to wear out and the roof's going to need fixing. And so they give you a lot of tax write-offs. And so that is one of the biggest reasons why, some of the richest people on this planet own a lot of real estate, because Warren Buffett openly admits that as a percentage, he pays less tax than his assistant does. And I don't know what his assistant makes, but I'm pretty sure she's not a billionaire, and he is. So that just goes to show you that the richest people are keeping their wealth by investing in real estate. And so Warren Buffett doesn't care about the cash flow. He doesn't care about the appreciation. He just doesn't want to pay tax on all of his billions of dollars that's coming in. And so that's a really good reason. And people like you and I can take advantage. You don't have to be a billionaire. People like you and I can take advantage of that too.
So you get to depreciate the property, get the cash flow out of the property. Plus, if the house property appreciates, you get that when. So it's a matter of time, like just holding it and riding it out. So and you're willing and able to do that as long as it's cash flowing properly.
Of course.
You don't care what the value of the house is, and so talk to me about that just for 1 second. Do you ever sell your homes? I mean, I know you sell your homes because you were in the market in Phoenix, and now you're in Atlanta.
Right, before that, Vegas, I've been in Florida, I've been in a bunch of different markets.
So how do you decide when to sell?
So real estate's very, very, very cyclical, as you mentioned, and so the goal is to buy. So what some people do is they'll buy a property, they'll hold on to it forever, and that's not a mistake, that's great. Holding on to a property and getting that cash flow, eventually if you have a mortgage, it gets paid off, that's an awesome strategy. But how you take that one step further, and especially since now you don't have to invest only in your own city. Imagine that I stayed in Phoenix, and that market took off. It went up 50% in 8 months.
That's crazy.
And I owned a lot of properties. I was very happy with that. But at a certain point, it doesn't make sense to keep buying. And so at some point, you sell, take your money off the table, and then you move to the next market that's undervalued. And that's when we went to Atlanta. And one of the cool things that happened is for every home that we sold here in Atlanta, we could buy every home we sold here in Phoenix, we could pretty much buy 2 in Atlanta. So literally double your portfolio without having to take any more money out of your pocket.
Without any more risk.
Right, and so and that's what I'm here for. So when my clients come to me for help to buy these turnkey homes, I'm not just selling them a home. I'm actually mentoring them. I'm telling them when to get in, when to get out, and I'm going to have the team set up in the next market when it's time to liquidate. And how you know when it's at the top of the market is you start to see competing offers on everything, and you'll see people writing offer after offer after offer, and they keep getting outbid, and every home goes for more than asking price, and people start putting no conditions. They're not going to inspect it. They're not going to put a financing condition. They're just going to take their chances. It's the only way to get an offer accepted. So we see stuff like that happening. Then it's time to get out, and of course that's when a lot of people just start to get in. So you want to have properties to sell when everybody's fighting over properties, and then you go to your next market. Use those criteria I mentioned earlier to find places landlord friendly and that are ripe for appreciation, good cash flow. Get into the next market, ride it up, rinse and repeat, do it over and over again. And I'm here to help people do that.
That's awesome. Do you typically see a cycle on how long that cycle plays out?
It varies considerably depending on You know, when you come out of a recession, places like Vegas, Phoenix, Florida, those are what we call sexy markets or trophy markets. And those are the markets that they drop the fastest, they go back the fastest. They're kind of like a yo-yo. And things happen very, very quickly in those markets. And the reason for that, there's a lot of emotion in those markets. So a lot of investors buy in Vegas because they want an excuse to go there, hang out for the weekend. They're not buying based on business sense, it's just that, or they want to be golfing.
What's in Vegas?
If you're nothing going on there. Or if you're Canadian, you want to be down here, you want to be in Scottsdale golfing in the winter. So, or you want to be close to Mickey Mouse, whatever. Whatever the reason is, it's not because it's business sense. It's for some other reason, but because enough people do it, it drives the market up and down very quickly. Those markets go the fastest. They've already done their thing. If you're not already in there, you probably missed the boat, I'm sorry to say. But then you have other markets that they're much more, you buy for business sense, like Atlanta, where it takes longer because you know, people's emotions sometimes take over a lot faster than their brain kicks in. And so for myself, that's why I started in Vegas and Phoenix and Florida, because I knew those markets would go up the fastest. They bounce back, or they drop the furthest. You get the best opportunity to get the best deals. And then when people jump back in and had faith in the markets again, they would go up really, really quickly. And you get a lot of foreign investors. Those are the places they know in the United States, the fun places. So that's where you invest first. Then after that happens, then you get into the markets such as Atlanta that make the most sense from a business perspective, where you're going to have the next set of, next growth and appreciation, where the jobs are being created, and that's where the money is right now. And that's why we're there. That takes a little bit longer though, because when you take the emotion out, but that gives you a long.
That's a good thing.
That's a great thing.
It's a great thing.
It's a great thing, especially if you haven't invested before. You still have opportunities to get into those.
You don't have to. Your window to get it right is a little bigger.
Right. Those are called emerging markets, by the way. And to me, Atlanta's the number one. Even before Amazon kind of made it known that there's a pretty good chance it's going to go to Atlanta. But even if it doesn't happen there, it's just the number of Fortune 500 companies, jobs being created. The fact is business and landlord friendly. There's just so many things in the market that to me it's a no-brainer.
It checks all the boxes.
Absolutely. We love being there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. All right, so we've talked about a lot of different stuff, and I think one of the areas with the United States being such a great market for real estate, there are a lot of people from around the world who are interested in potentially investing in real estate in the United States. There's a lot of foreign people that are looking for opportunities that maybe are having a hard time figuring out how to break into the market without, and minimizing the risk in the ways that we're talking. So talk to me a little bit about how, a foreign individual would be able to get into the market.
Well, the beautiful thing about what we do is we take all the guesswork out of it. We've done all the work for you. We've already bought the property, fixed it. So you don't need to, there's nothing you really need to do. And one of the great things is you don't have to be American to invest in the United States. As a matter of fact, I'm not American myself. I'm from Canada, That's right. And but there's so many benefits to U.S. real estate compared to other parts of the world. One, the U.S. is still on sale, at least in some of the markets, and it's much more affordable. It's ridiculous how much less expensive it is here than, let's say, Canada and almost anywhere I know of in Europe. I travel the world and I tend to just look at real estate just for the fun of it. And the U.S. is way, way, way too low right now compared to where it should be. Like, I can't believe the prices. But also, as an investor here, you guys have it so good. And you guys have the 1031 exchange. For those who don't know what that is, that means that if you sell a piece of property, and there's certain terms and conditions to doing this, so don't go do it, say Mike said, because there are things you need to know. But in general, you can sell a property, and if you reinvest that money in more real estate, you don't pay capital gains tax on it. That's deferred. Whereas in Canada and every country I know of, if you sell a piece of property and take the proceeds, the government's going to tax you on it, and you can only take what's left over of those proceeds to buy your next property. So if you want to build a portfolio, it can happen much quicker in the United States than anywhere else that I know of. One, because of the low prices, and two, because of the favorable taxes, and for real estate investors.
That's awesome. Well, that's fantastic. So, I guess at this point in time, I don't want to have this go too long. You know, I hopefully the information was valuable and helpful. I know I learned a lot, and I always like hearing it. I mean, this isn't the first time I've heard this stuff, but I always like hearing it from you because it just kind of re-cements it, you know, and it's really good. So what I want to do now is just encourage you guys, if you have any questions, if this sounds interesting to you, if you think it might be something you want to learn more about, Mike does have some great content that we've partnered up on, and I've included the links for you to have access and to go watch his webinar talking about his Atlanta turnkey properties. I'll put the links in, everything that you need to know to be able to go watch that content. And if you're interested in potentially working with Mike, you're taking clients on, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We're always happy to help, because the more clients we get, the bigger the packages we get, the better the deal everybody, including myself, gets. So,
leverage.
It's another form of leverage.
So go ahead and, you know, we are going to be putting out more videos as well, education-wise. So click on the subscribe button, click the little bell so you get notified anytime we put a video out. Make sure if you want to check out his content, click on the links below. And hope you guys have an amazing, inspirational day. Go out and crush it, and we'll see you on the next video.
Take care.
Awesome.